All right, we're live with episode number 5, going over the college football matchups, previews, and wagers that we have going into week number 3. Let's go ahead and kick it off with tonight's game. What do you think about tonight's game, Connor, with Navy traveling to Memphis? Memphis is pretty much laying 13 and a half points across the board last I saw, and I think it's still there. What do you think about this game?
So, in the preview magazine, we talked about how Memphis has a manageable schedule.
Yep.
And this is one of those games that, in order for us to be correct about a potential breakthrough for Memphis, this is the kind of game they need to win. You would think Memphis would win this game comfortably. Navy has not looked good at all this year. Memphis has looked good, but again, they haven't played that good a competition. But we don't think Navy is that tough of
Yeah.
a team right now. Um, I think Vegas has this line about right because this is one of those games in the past where Ryan Silverfield, the head coach from Memphis, they just put up a terrible performance and they come up on the short end and lose a one possession game. Memphis has been terrible in close games under Ryan Silverfield. So if Navy is able to run the ball effectively and keep it close, then I would have some worry for Memphis. But that's like the only scenario where I see Memphis being in a trouble spot in this game.
Yeah.
I think I think Memphis is going to win this game comfortably, probably by about 2 touchdowns, if I had to guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, Navy, they sometimes they can run the ball, sometimes they can't run the ball, and when that's your whole offense, whenever you can't run the ball effectively, it becomes a problem. And we saw against Notre Dame with Navy that their defense is probably, I mean, it's pretty terrible. I'm not too sure who they played last week or who they played since the Notre Dame game. I think they played like a FCS school, at least one FCS school. So I don't know if they played 2 or 3 games so far, but yeah, Sam Hartman, he picked them apart. They ran all over Navy's defense. Of course, Notre Dame has pretty much a NFL offensive line, which that doesn't hurt. But their running backs, Hartman had no issues. I mean, they really didn't have any trouble with Navy. And we talked about it in the preview, and we've talked about it before that this Memphis team, they're gearing up for a run at the AAC championship, which looks like could be it, which is pretty much a wide open race. You have UTSA with injuries, Frank Harris, who knows with him, he's injury prone, and it's not looking great. And UTSA is starting to slow out of the gates, and you have Houston. No, Houston's back in the Big 12, but Tulane dealing with injury issues. So pretty much the AAC is wide open, and I think Memphis. I think they'll win this game comfortably. I think the spread should have been closer to 17 points. They've beaten Navy, I want to say 35-14, 35-17 the past 2 years. And I just can't see Navy keeping up with Memphis offensively. And Navy doesn't have the defense like they've had, 4 or 5 years ago to where they could stop Memphis and maybe make some plays, create some turnovers. It's just been a different Navy football team the past 2 seasons. So I just put it on the website today. I've got Memphis laying 13 and a half points. I think that they win this game pretty comfortably at home.
Yeah, I agree with you. I could see a final score of like 27-10 in favor of Memphis.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what we're looking at on the first game. That's tonight. It's not the standalone game because Miami plays Bethune Cookman, and that's I think that's like a 53-point spread or something. So we won't be getting into that one. There's no real need for it. But let's jump into Friday's games. There's a couple interesting games. And one of them being Virginia going on the road against Maryland. Maryland favored by 14 and a half points. This Maryland team kind of struggled last weekend against Charlotte, and Virginia was, they had to come behind James Madison and make that a game. What do you think about this matchup?
So I think this is a complete mismatch for Virginia. They got to go on the road. I don't think Virginia has the corners to match up against this Maryland receiving core. I made a post on my Instagram page about a month ago discussing how I thought the Maryland receiving corps was one of the more underrated position groups in the country. Um, yeah, going on the road, a difficult. Well, Maryland's not a difficult environment, but anytime you go on the road, it's not easy.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think Maryland's defense is all that great, but I do not think Virginia's offense is good. I mean that true freshman quarterback played really well against James Madison, but
Mm-hmm.
it's just not a good team for Virginia right now. I think their defensive line is pretty decent. Like I think Virginia has an okay front seven. So we'll see if Maryland's able to get the running game going or not. But Maryland's going to win this game comfortably. Probably they might even beat Virginia uh, more than they beat Charlotte by. Honestly,
Yeah.
Maryland. So I mean, what was the score like? Was it 14-0 Charlotte at one point?
Yeah, Charlotte started the game off 14 nothing, and then they Maryland got a couple field goals, and then it turned into a shootout. I'm pretty sure.
I think Maryland ended up winning by 17. I want to say.
I think I have it in front of me. Let me just look it up really quick. Cause yeah, I mean Charlotte put up a good fight, but Maryland ended up being too much for them, and Maryland ended up winning 38-20, scoring 21 points in the fourth quarter to take over the game and finish them off.
Speaking of like slow starts and strong finishes, we've seen so far in the first 2 weeks of college football, we've had a lot of like first half unders, and then the over ends up cashing in by the end of the game. Like I know I've taken two unders. I'm over 2, and the first one I lost on a bad beat, the Penn State and
Penn
West
State
Virginia
game.
West Virginia game. It's terrible. But James Franklin apparently is not a person of the people.
No. Well, it
Um,
depends which people.
yeah, true. Depends on which
Yeah.
people. Um,
He did it for his
um,
Maryland people, that's for sure. Or not
yeah,
Maryland, Penn State, because they
yeah,
that last play covered the spread too, as well as tipped the game over.
yeah. I know I was not the only one taking that under for that game, but I've seen a lot of first half unders though. So that and I think Michigan State's like one of the better examples. Like they've beat both Central Michigan and Richmond both decisively, but the scores at halftime was very unimpressive. It was 17-0 against Richmond at halftime. And then against Central Michigan, I want to say it was 10-7 in favor of Michigan State, but it was and they didn't and Michigan State didn't score a touchdown until like the very like last drive
Uh-huh.
of the first half right before halftime. So yeah, first half unders have cashed in for sure. So um, but I yeah, Maryland's gonna beat Virginia pretty decisively. I would think by at least 2 touchdowns.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on the line because it hasn't really moved much from 14 and a half. So it might tick down some. But yeah, like we've kind of talked about all year, Virginia's they're probably gonna struggle all season. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, it doesn't look good for them. And they have a really tough schedule to start the year against Tennessee, James Madison, and now Maryland. So
Yep.
pretty tough schedule. And now we have uh, at six
Oh,
o'clock. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say Virginia also has to play. I think it's William and Mary from the
Uh
FCS,
huh.
and William and Mary is like one of the better FCS teams.
Oh,
So there
really?
are no guaranteed wins on Virginia's schedule. So they might be like that 1-11 or 2-10 team.
Well, yeah, and I think their win total coming into the season was maybe 3 or 4 games, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Oh, and
If not,
sorry about that.
yeah,
Sorry about that Old Dominion victory against ULL.
I know they won pretty easily. I was pretty surprised, but that's one. It's one of three, so we'll see. I think I gave them. I thought that they could win 3 games. That's why the 3.5 was that hook was
Yeah.
really important on that win total. So we'll see. I figure that they would win, one of the games like that. So I
Yeah.
don't know. I think they're starting a freshman quarterback and they're just, let it rip. And they play Wake Forest this weekend. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and ULL plays UAB, and ULL and UAB are both teams to fade right now. So
That's what it sounds like. The other game on Friday, UTSA and Army. This will be in San Antonio. What do you think about this game? I heard the other day, which I haven't seen Army play, but it sounds like they're running a spread offense now. Is that right?
this was something that I think we talked about in the preseason. I don't I did not put an article in the preview magazine about this. I almost
Mm-hmm.
did, but you're going to be seeing. I'm not sure exactly what Army is running. I haven't watched any film
Mm-hmm.
on them, but I do know you are going to be seeing Army, Navy. I don't know about Air Force, but definitely Army and Navy kind of fade from their old ways, their old habits of the triple option offense.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be mixing in some new offensive schemes and formations. Will they completely abandon the run? No, but they're changing up a lot of their play style because of the new rules that were implemented in college football, I believe, last year with no more chop
The
blocking.
chop blocks, yeah.
So that takes away a lot from what those teams do offensively. So yeah, I knew they were going to be changing things up. I figured they would be,
Mm-hmm.
um, but I don't know like what their base formation is or what their base play type is.
Yeah, I'm not too sure either. I read something like that on the internet the other day, but I haven't watched any of Army's games so far this season. But I guess I'll find out tomorrow whenever they play UTSA, and which should be an interesting game because I don't really know how Army is gonna look, and UTSA, they're dealing with some injuries, mainly to Frank Harris at the quarterback position, and then they play Tennessee next weekend. So it's quite the sandwich spot going from Texas State last weekend, rival, to Army on a Friday night on ESPN main channel, and then next weekend they play at Tennessee. So quite the sandwich spot. I don't know if I would lay the points with UTSA because I don't even know Frank Harris's status right now. I haven't looked into it too much, but he didn't look good at the end of the Texas State game, but we'll see what happens. But to me, this is too many points. UTSA games has been going under, so they're probably going to lean on their defense and their running game, and Army will probably be doing the same. But those are my early insight into this game. Do you have anything on it?
Well, I do have something on UTSA, a concern, because I kind of hammered their preseason win total of seven and a
Mm-hmm.
half. I did not know why it was that low. Now I know why because they were injured offensively. They had their one of their better receiver. I knew that one of their better receivers was going to be out for a little bit, but I didn't
Yeah.
know all the things about Frank Harris. I thought he was going to be fine. Apparently I should have
Well,
done more in depth, but
that happened in the Texas State Well, I think he
he
got a
wasn't
little
fully
nicked up in
healthy.
the oh, he wasn't fully healthy
I don't think he's
coming
been
into
fully.
the season?
No, from what I understand, no. Now he
Wow.
may. I mean, now he's probably what like 40 or 50% healthy, but he
Yeah.
might have been like 80, 85% healthy. But I don't think he's
Okay.
been fully healthy at all this season. He had. I heard, of course, once the season starts and my win total's locked, but
Uh-huh.
I think he had like a bunch of surgeries in the off season.
Yeah, I
So
know that it was like right after the season for sure. And then yeah, he kind of was that offensive line's killing him, man. Yet last year he was able to make some plays happen and escape, but now I mean, teams are just coming after him, and well, at least we saw it in the first 2 weeks, and I'm sure it won't be any different whenever he plays Army and then Tennessee next week. So yeah, it's not looking good. I know Maltzberger came in uh, maybe for one possession for UTSA, and he didn't throw the ball. He has a decent arm, but he didn't throw the ball. He just they handed it off. They ran the ball when he was in, and then the next possession, Frank Harris came back. So I'm not too sure, but definitely worried about his if he could play the whole season healthy, which doesn't look likely.
no, but Do you know if UTSA will be healthy at receiver at any point soon?
Clark practice has been practicing this week.
Okay.
So
That'll
that's
help if they get him
yeah.
back.
Yeah, so I think that was really the only injury that they had on in the receiver position, if I'm not mistaken. I know they lost the lineman in the Texas State game, not
Yeah.
good. But yeah, Clark, from what I read earlier in the week, he was practicing. Whether that's for Army, for Tennessee, I don't know, but he was practicing though.
So if Frank Harris, like I don't think Army's not very good. They're not
No,
good right
no.
now. UTSA should win this game because I think I mean, look, I may have maybe over I might have overrated UTSA myself,
Mm-hmm.
but their defense has surprised me. Like I thought it'd be pretty good. It's
Yeah.
been really good.
Yeah, it's pretty great. I'm pretty sure Trey Moore's tied for first in the country with sacks, if I'm not mistaken. Either that or the conference,
He's
but I
up
thought it was the country.
he's up there. I mean, didn't he have 2 sacks against was it Texas State or was it Houston?
Texas State. I think he had 3 sacks. So I'll have
Three.
to look. I'll have to look that up and fact check that. But yeah, yeah, he's definitely off to a hot start.
So the good news is it seems like if Frank Harris can get back to I mean it won't be this Friday, obviously, it won't be tomorrow, but if
Yeah.
he's say 75-80% healthy later this year, maybe like in some point in October, I think UTSA could still win like 9-ish games. I mean, obviously they've already lost to Houston. They're probably going to lose at Tennessee. They're probably going to lose at Tulane.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like, there's no other game that really scares me. The road game against Florida Atlantic could be tricky.
Yeah.
But UNT, they're beating UNT.
Mm-hmm.
UNT cannot stop anything
Yeah.
defensively, and their offense is not special. It's okay. It's not special enough to beat UTSA's defense, and UTSA will do anything they want offensively. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is
Mm-hmm.
running things. Um, and if you notice, UTSA's home schedule, it's very manageable. Like honestly, Army or maybe Rice, Army or Rice might be their most difficult home game.
Yeah,
It's a
probably
pretty
Rice. Rice. I mean, Rice looks like they have decent, like they have decent talent offensively, but
yeah. So if UTSA can be healthier, they're not. It seems like they're not going to be fully healthy at any point this year. But
mm-hmm.
if they can be pretty healthy, they should beat Rice at home.
Yeah.
So figure losses to Tennessee and Tulane. I'm thinking of in terms of my overbet for them right now. That's what I'm doing.
Oh.
um, yeah. So probably lose to Tennessee and Tulane, but outside of that, I mean, Florida Atlantic's not going to be easy. Rice won't be easy, but I don't think Rice is all that great. But I didn't think Houston was all that great, and I might be correct about Houston. So again, maybe I overrated UTSA.
Yeah.
I still think UTSA can go 9-3 though.
Yeah. I think so. I think that even with the Frank Harris injury, I mean, he might be fine. I don't know. I guess we'll find out more tomorrow, really.
Having Clark
But
back is going to really help this offense, though.
yeah, they need a spark. I mean, Kavorian Barnes has been dominant, but the passing game has been severely missed, and nothing like it was or has been the past 2 seasons.
No, but yeah, with Clark, I mean with the tight end and with Joshua Cephas, if they can get Clark back, that's a pretty good receiving core.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So
but
we'll
you need that wide receiver too to
y-
open up wide receiver one.
yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah, and that's what they're missing. And then they got Kellogg, but I mean, Clark's a game changer, so hopefully
yeah,
hopefully he can come back and play tomorrow, get ready, and then be ready for the Tennessee game.
so I think UTSA's defense could actually do pretty good against Tennessee. Maybe this defense, like I said, I did underestimate this defense, and I thought it'd be pretty good. It
Hmm.
surprised me though. Dare I say it's a good enough defense to keep them in every game?
Oh, for sure. I mean, the defense. I mean, the defense is really good. I mean, I just checked right now, and yeah, Trey Moore's tied for first in the country with 4 sacks. But yeah, I mean, Tennessee hasn't been special. We'll at least. I mean, we might as well just jump into it now while we're talking about it. Um, Tennessee, they looked okay against Virginia, but I mean, they still haven't looked anything like they did last season, which Milton, of course, is kind of struggling with his accuracy, which we kind of knew about. But I mean, yeah, UTSA's defense, I think, I have a feeling could very well keep them in that game. But we'll learn a lot more from Tennessee after their game this weekend against Florida, because I kind of rate Florida with like a pretty decent defense. It's their quarterback position that's really, I mean, their offense in general, but I think Florida's defense is pretty stout. Not amazing for SEC defense, but it's still like a pretty decent defense.
Yeah, it's fine. They're able to stop the run. They're pretty big on the defensive line. They don't they have like one decent pass rusher, but they don't really rush the quarterback all that great. Their pass defense is not that great. I mean, John Marshall is a really good corner, but
Hmm.
outside of him, it's a bunch of unknowns in the secondary. And I think Florida. I mean, I guess we'll see what the near future is in terms of the transfer portal, whether or not they can get guys in or they can keep guys from going out. If
Hmm.
recruiting stays on track, but as of right now, it looks like future Florida has a really bright future. But right now,
If they can find a
um,
quarterback, yeah, definitely.
yeah. But for 2023, it's going to be a long season in Gainesville, and this
Yeah.
is something that we talked about in the preview. I even had a sub article about it. I don't think Florida's going to win this game.
No,
If Florida
no.
were to pull off an upset this season, this would be it
Yeah.
because I don't see them going on the road and really beating anybody decent with the pulse. Like Utah barely has a pulse right now offensively.
Yeah.
They couldn't even beat Utah. They couldn't even Utah covered the spread with
Yep.
with with a very questionable offense that Utah just barely beat Baylor, who got beat decisively at home by Texas State. So
Hmm.
look, I'll put it in those terms. Florida is just not a good team right now. They're
No,
not.
no.
But I don't know how good Tennessee is either.
Yeah, exactly. It's there's just a lot of question marks in this game, and I think the spread opened up like 7.5. I think it's down
Yeah.
to 6.5.
Yep.
So kind of makes sense, even though the spread was like 7 last year, and Florida covered, but they had Anthony Richardson last year. It's a different team, but yeah, there's a lot of question marks with both of these teams, especially at the quarterback position. Milton has all the talent in the world. Can he put it together? And then Graham Mertz is a walking nightmare in Florida. As long as he's the starting quarterback, I'm sorry, but they're just not gonna be able to do anything. In that
Graham
Utah
Mertz.
game, he gave the game. They very well could have beat Utah because, like I said, if you take away that first play of the game, that 70-yard pass for a touchdown, Utah didn't really do anything special other than
That's true.
forced turnovers on Florida, right? So every Florida was able to drive, but then Mertz would throw an interception. So Mertz would fumble the ball. So it was like, all right, like the defense did everything. Offensive line's decent, but it's quarterback position. So I don't know. And that's what happens when you mess up the quarterback. I think did Emory Jones like transfer from Florida, or was he gonna
So
go there, or he went to Cincinnati? What was the deal on that?
so Emory Jones was at Florida a couple years ago, transferred to Arizona State, and then
Oh,
transferred to
that's who's
Cincinnati.
okay. And he played pretty good for Arizona State last year, like decent. He wasn't amazing, but
He,
uh
he was he was average at best. They actually played another quarterback too. I'm forgetting how to pronounce his last name. I'm pretty sure he's still on the Arizona State roster. I mean, he was during the summer.
uh-huh.
He hasn't played this year, or he hasn't really played much this fall because they played the Arizona State has played that freshman quarterback, is it Jaden Rashada, the guy that should
Rashada.
have been to Florida.
Yeah, exactly. And they messed up with him. Well, yeah, something happened to where he wanted to get out of his scholarship, NIL, what or
Yeah,
letter of intent. And that was
I
a
don't
whole
think the
thing, but yeah.
yeah the NIL situation. So it was all NIL, I believe. Um, Apparently, what he was I don't want to say promised, but what he was told at some point um, was not what he thought it was going to be.
Uh-huh.
So that's why he transferred to Arizona State.
Okay. So there you go. Like they messed up on that recruiting cycle or however you want to call it. They messed up with the quarterback and now they're stuck with Graham Mertz and who knows. I mean they're desperate right now for something. and then like the whole Kitna thing. So they messed up on a quarterback all the way around, right? So that's where they're in a hole. So we'll see what happens. I'm interested to watch the game. You'll probably learn a lot more about both schools after it, but just something to think about. I just want to throw that in there since we started talking about Tennessee.
Yeah. By the way, one thing to watch for the Tennessee and Florida game is we saw it. You mentioned it. The very first play from the line of scrimmage for Utah against Florida, um, they connected on a 75-yard touchdown pass. Florida's safeties are a pretty big question this year, and while Joe Milton does not have a very accurate arm, at least on a consistent basis,
Hmm.
he obviously has a very strong arm.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised to see Tennessee beat Florida in the open field at multiple times this game with some long passes against those young safeties for Florida. The question will be what happens in the red zone. I hinted toward this in the preview. I said if Florida was going to be good at anything this year, they would be good at only one thing, which is playing in a phone booth because they're pretty big on the offense and defensive lines.
Hmm.
Their offensive line's not very athletic. They're not very good, but they are big. They can lean on you. And that's kind of like what the Florida defensive line's like. They don't really rush the passer all that great. They don't have a ton of great pass rushers, but they're pretty big and they're pretty good in short yarded situations. Can they beat Tennessee in those short yardage situations? If they can, extend the game, again, play in the phone booth, win in the red zone, they'll have an outside chance in this game. But Florida is going to be beat in the open field between the 20s against probably almost every team they play this year.
Yep. Yeah. I'm interested to see how the game plays out. That's for sure. And like you said, if they can not get beat over the top, Florida has a chance, but it's still there's just so many factors that go against Florida, but we'll see what happens though.
Yeah, and I do think Tennessee's defense will be able to get pressure on Graham Mertz. Graham
Which that's
Mertz
all you need to
actually,
do and he'll fold.
it's true. He now Graham Mertz really hasn't been bad statistically
But the
so far.
turnovers killed him against Utah. He had a decent game, but he just couldn't finish the drives, and they kept settling for field goals, and they missed the field goals, and they had to go for it on fourth down. So it just like throws off the whole game. But what were you gonna say? I'm
They have
sorry.
Oh no, I was gonna say is the fact that Graham Mertz has not been like the issue for Florida so far, it's a bad sign. And I don't mean anything that against Graham Mertz. My point is that Graham Mertz actually has been fine in respect to the rest of the roster, which just tells you Florida has a very low ceiling right now as a team. Like I
And
don't think people realize like I'm sure there's going to be a lot of Florida fans who would say, "Oh, our ceiling's really high, but right now we're just playing at a very low level, but we have a really high ceiling." No, they don't. That's the thing. This Florida team, they have a low floor and a low ceiling. They pretty much are what they are at this point.
yeah, and I think they had a kid transfer right after that Utah game too. I don't know if he even really played or not, but I know somebody transferred like right after the game.
Hmm.
So
I don't remember seeing that in the news, but it probably wasn't even that big of an impact player.
yeah, no, not at all. I mean, I wouldn't think so. What about the other? This one I don't know have too much info on, but what about the other Friday night game or the last one? There's three games. This would be the third one. Utah State against Air Force. I know Air Force kind of. I didn't watch the game, but I was looking at the score, and they kind of struggled a little bit with San Jose or Sam Houston State, but they still got the win. They didn't score very many points. So, what do you think about the Utah State Air Force game?
Well, first of all, Sam Houston State, their defense is legit.
Yeah,
It's good.
they just can't
They have
score.
no offense. Mm-mm. No, no, it's like hammering the unders for Sam Houston State games this year. Um, but I would think Air Force beats Utah State. I don't think Utah State's a good team at all this year. I know they looked impressive against whoever they played last week. It doesn't matter though. Like I saw like all the Mountain West pages and podcasts. They were talking about, oh, Utah State's looking really good right now. Let's not underestimate the Aggies. I'm still going to underestimate the Aggies. I don't think they're a very good team this year. Um, but you know what? I think this was something that I brought up to you when you were discussing like over or unders, maybe the Fresno State under.
Mm-hmm.
And I said the only team that I would be willing to bet an under on in the Mountain West this year is Utah State. But that would be the only team. And even then, I didn't place any bet on the Utah State under,
Mm-hmm.
which I believe was set at 5 or 5.5. Um, it's because I don't think the Mountain West is all that good. That's why I bet that Colorado State over. Like if you're going to bet on anything in the Mountain West this year, bet an over, not an
Yeah.
under. I still think Colorado State can hit that over, albeit maybe their non-conference is more difficult than I thought it was going to be. I didn't think Washington State was going to be as good as what they've been so far. I obviously didn't think Colorado was going to be as good as what they've been.
Uh-huh.
Middle Tennessee is even better than I thought. Now, I believe Colorado State's other non-conference games against Utah Tech. They'll win that game. At least they should. But Colorado State, I think, can still hit the over because I don't think the Mountain West is all that good. We've seen Boise not look as good, and I figured they weren't going to look as good. I wrote about that. And Colorado State gets. I'm going on a tangent. Here I go again. Colorado State, but they get Boise at home, Air Force at home, San Diego State at home. We talked about San Diego State. We're
Yeah.
not high on Texas this year. So I still, if you're going to bet on anything in the Mountain West, bet on an over. But to go back to Utah, or for Utah State and Air Force, I would think Air Force wins this game. Remember, Utah State beat Air Force last year in like one of the most weird games of
Uh-huh.
2020. Air Force should have won that game. I think Utah State had like a post game win percentage that was like in the 20s or the 30s, whatever it was. It was low. Um, I would think, and it was at Utah State. Now it's at Air Force, if I'm not mistaken. I
Yeah, the Air
believe.
Force is at home.
Okay, yeah. I would think Air Force is looking for revenge in this game. I think they would win this game, but we'll see. If Air Force does not win this game, it's a bad look for the Mountain West this year because whether Utah State makes a bowl game or not, they're not a good team.
Yeah, I'll have to agree with that. And we'll see how they do because, like I said, they struggle with that Sam Houston State defense. But like you mentioned, Sam Houston State don't let the name fool you. They actually have a really good defense. They just can't score any points. Poor
No.
guys. Um.
Feel
All
bad
right,
for them.
let's see here. There's a few good games. Of course, the next week's schedule is absolutely loaded, but there's a few good games that we can go over, of course, today for the Saturday slate. Let's start at the top with Penn State against Illinois. What do you think about that game?
So 2 years ago, this was like the famous. I think it was 7 or
Seven?
8. Oh no, was it 9 overtimes? It was the
9.
longest game in college football history, I believe. That or LSU A&M
Yeah,
5 years ago.
I
The
think
longest.
this one beat the LSU A&M game. I'm pretty sure.
Pull it up right here. Let's see.
Yeah, and right now Penn State's favored by 14.5 on the road.
Yeah, it was 9 overtimes
9. Okay.
2 years ago. Yeah, 20-18 final score. Illinois pulled off the upset at Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think Penn State's winning this game. I know everybody, everyone that I knew that was betting on preseason win totals. If they were to bet on Illinois' preseason win total, they were hammering the over at 6.5.
Mm-hmm.
That's looking a little questionable right now. They pulled it out against Toledo. By the way, Toledo, they are like the best example. They are like the Texas of the G5. A really good roster, and they find ways to lose games they have no business losing. It's it's
Always.
it's so frustrating. They always underperform. But point being, Illinois should have lost to Toledo. Illinois um, got boat raced by Kansas, and I don't think Kansas is a great team. I might be wrong about that. I don't think they're great. I think they're pretty good. I think they're really good offensively. I don't think they're good defensively. So point being, I don't think Illinois is all that good of a team. Um, the question for Illinois coming into the season was the skill position. Line of scrimmage, they were great. At least on paper, they look great. But the question was the skill position. The secondary has been a little bit of a trouble spot so far for Illinois. But what's also been a trouble spot has been their run defense, which is a little bit surprising given what they returned in the defensive front seven and especially on their defensive line. I think this is a bad matchup for Illinois. I know it's at Illinois, but Penn State is a what 14.5 point favorite.
14 and a half right now.
Yeah, as in a true road game, you have the road team against at least an Illinois team with a pulse, and you have the road team favored by 2 touchdowns outright.
Yep.
That tells you a little something right there. And then of course the hook at 14.5. So that tells you a little something there. Um,
Yeah,
I think
especially with that Illinois run defense. They got torched by Toledo and Kansas, and now they got to play Penn State, who has two really good running backs.
yeah, and Illinois doesn't really have a great offense. I mean, maybe it can be better than last year's, but that's a low bar to clear. It's not that good. I mean,
Yeah, they
I
had a
think
pretty
they're
decent
okay.
offense last year. They had a good quarterback, good running back, and now they just have a quarterback who just runs for his life, and he's the only one that could score and pick up yards. That's usually how he's been picking up yards, is just scrambling and running away and running for touchdowns. At least that's what happened a lot in the Kansas game and a little bit in the Toledo game. So yeah, they don't have very much on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and the defense is not nearly as good as what it was last year. I am surprised the run defense has struggled to the degree that it has, but maybe they can get that turned around at some point. But there's still a lot of questions on this team, and so this was a team that I was not as high on as a lot of people were coming into this year, and so far Illinois has looked how I thought they would. Okay, nothing special. And I think Penn State is special.
Yeah.
So Penn State's going to win this game. Will they cover? I don't know. Sometimes you get garbage time points, and anytime you have to play a true road game, it's not easy winning outright by any means, but it's especially not easy winning decisively. Um, so will Penn State cover? I don't know, but I think Penn State's winning this game. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, because I mean, what, Kansas got up by almost 30 points and Illinois stormed back, and Kansas ended up only winning by whatever it was, 6, 9, 7 points, whatever it was. But so you never know. Backdoor's usually always open. You
Yeah.
always have to be careful once you start laying, that many points on the road.
Right. Now, that being said, if Illinois is down by as much as what they were against Kansas, there's not going to be any backdoor cover for Illinois because Penn State's defense is much better than Kansas defense.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
but Penn State's going to win this game.
Yeah. All right. So next game, let's take it to the SEC with LSU traveling to Mississippi State in Starkville. Looks like LSU's favored by 9.5 points on the road. What do you have on this game?
So, originally I sent you um my my plays for this Saturday
Uh huh.
earlier this week or last Sunday I sent you plays, and this was one of them. I'm going to stay away from this because this is a road game, and I do not like taking the road team unless I feel like the road team is the better team and they're over or undervalued compared
Mm-hmm.
to what Vegas thinks. Um, so I think LSU is properly valued right now by Vegas. Maybe not in this game. I'm not sure because I'm really not sure what to expect from Mississippi State right now.
Mm-hmm.
They needed, was it 4 turnovers, like a +4 turnover differential to beat Arizona, and it at home at Miss in Starkville,
Yeah.
and it took 4 turnovers +4 turnover differential and overtime against Arizona. Arizona is not a special team. I know a lot of people were talking about Arizona's a sneaky good team. They're going to make a bowl game. They're going to go 7-5, 8-4. No, they're not. Like I think they're going to be lucky if they go 6-6. Honestly, um, Jaden Delora is a very inconsistent quarterback. He's got his moments, and
Yeah.
then he's got the moments where it's like, okay, that's why he's
Yeah.
not
Like,
a
what do
first
you have?
round
Like
pick.
3 interceptions against Mississippi State, I
Yeah,
think. Yeah.
at least. Yeah. Um, so I don't know how good Mississippi State is. I know they're a veteran team, they're experienced, and so I don't like betting against experienced teams at home when they're laying 9 points or 9.5 points like against LSU. But do I think LSU is like at least two scores better than Mississippi State? Yes, I do. I just anytime you have a road game, it might be one of those games LSU has to squeak by and win like 31-24 or
Uh huh.
27-20. And LSU is going to win this game. I'd be shocked if they lost. But it's again kind of like that Penn State Illinois scenario when you get a significantly better team on the road and they're laying more than 8.5, 9 points. It's going to be hard for me to take them ATS
Yeah.
wise just because it's a road game. If they're playing at home, different story. But it's just you get those backdoor covers all the time with these kind of games. And look, LSU might be ahead by let's say 17 points. And then Mississippi State scores like 10 points in the final 5.5, 6 minutes, and LSU recovers an onside kick and they win 31-24, but the score
Mm-hmm.
was never that close kind of thing. We
Yeah.
could have I see that all the time. Is LSU going to win, decisively or to the point where they look like they're the better team? Yes. I don't know if they're going to cover or not.
Okay. Yeah, I gotta look. I gotta watch the Mississippi State game. Like you said, there's a lot of turnovers. They didn't play their best game against Arizona, but I still need to watch that Arizona Mississippi State game and see how they looked. But right now, LSU is definitely the better team. But we'll
Yeah,
see. Like I mean, it's a SEC road game, so it's not gonna be LSU's just not gonna probably not gonna walk in there and just win by 30 points. So
I would think not.
we'll see what happens. I need to watch a little bit more on Mississippi State. We know kind of what LSU has, so I just got to look into Mississippi State a little bit more on that one. Um,
Yeah, and fortunately for LSU's sake, the biggest question right now for LSU is their cornerback play on defense. Well, if this were the Mississippi State of old, or at least the last few years with Mike Leach, this might be a trouble spot for LSU with the passing attack.
yeah.
But Mississippi State's not like that anymore. So they're going to want to run the football. Well, LSU can defend the run very well. And remember, they're going to get back Mason Smith to pair with Mekhi Wingo
Mm-hmm.
uh, for the defensive tackle rotation for LSU. So, yeah, this is a good matchup on paper for LSU, but again, they're a 9.5 point favorite on the road. I'm staying away from it. Could they cover? Absolutely. I think there are more scenarios where LSU covers than when they don't, but we see it all the time, those backdoor covers. So,
Yeah. Yeah, 9.5. It's a lot, but let's go to the SEC, or let's stay in the SEC, but with the SEC Big 12 matchup, and one that I know that you've been looking forward to, and that's Kansas State traveling to Missouri to take on the Missouri Tigers. No, Kansas State is favored by 4 points here. Let's hear about it because I know you have a few things to say.
yeah, hint, hint, I'm going to be talking about this game later in the show when we do our plays. But I'm really looking forward to this matchup. Um, I this is the game that will I think decide Missouri's fate this fall. Like I don't think Eli Drinkwitz is a tremendous coach because if he was, Missouri would have been better than what they've been. They've kind of underperformed the last few years under Eli. They've also been pretty poor in close game management, so that usually tells you a little something about um, the coaching staff or whether or not they're getting the most out of their players and team. But again, this is going to be the game that decides what kind of season this is for Missouri. Is it a special season? Is it a really good season? Is it a good season? Is it an okay season? Was it disappointing? Whatever it may be, this is the game. This is the game that Missouri fans have been pointing to for several months now, since last year concluded. They were like, we are looking at that Kansas State game in week 3. We get the defending Big 12 champion Wildcats who lost a couple of their big name players in the previous year. We get them in Columbia. This is a chance for us to make a statement early in the season and again kind of set the um, whatever that term is to kind of set
Set the
things
tone
for
for the
that.
season.
Yeah, set the tone for the season exactly. So I cannot wait to see the matchup of Kansas State's offensive line against Missouri's defensive line. And really, I wrote that preview on Missouri's defense. I cannot wait to watch Missouri's defense against every team that they face this year. But this could be the game where it puts Missouri on the map, or it could be the game where it's okay. Looks like Missouri is another 6-6 team. This is the game. So it's going to be a sellout crowd. It's going to be one of the best atmospheres in the entire country for Week 3. Kansas State, great offensive line. Will Howard's a good quarterback. Both Missouri and Kansas State, though, haven't really played anybody that good. I know people are going to say, well, Kansas State just beat the Sun Belt defending champion in Troy. Troy is not nearly as good this year as what they were last year.
Yeah, no, two completely different teams.
Yeah. So now, if this were last year's Troy and Kansas State beat them 42-13, okay, yeah, Kansas State's legit. I think Kansas State is legit. I don't think they're a great team, and I'm not saying Missouri is either. But my point being, I think Missouri is a little undervalued, and I don't think Kansas State's overvalued. I think they're fine. I just think the media is kind of overvalued, not overvaluing, but they're kind of overrating Kansas State. I don't think Kansas State is a great team.
Okay.
So
Yeah, it should be a good game.
we'll talk about this game again more so later in our show here, but yeah, I do have a play on this game.
What about which this is the first time I've seen this matchup, I guess. I guess I haven't noticed it. Another 11 a.m. game. What about Georgia Southern traveling to Wisconsin? Wisconsin favored by 20 points. That's an interesting matchup there.
Yeah, when you sent me the opening line for or all of the opening lines
Uh-huh.
last weekend for this Saturday, I think this line opened at like 13 and a half or 14 for
Oh,
Wisconsin, I want
really?
to say.
Wow.
I think or maybe no, maybe it was like 15 or 15 and a half. But
Wow.
it's gone up
Yeah, it's
significantly
yeah,
either
all the
way.
way up to 20. Yeah, that's kind of surprising. I wouldn't have guessed that. I thought it would have been a little bit higher, not that low, like 14, 15 points. I wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah, I don't think Georgia Southern's defense is good at all. I was kind of hoping it would be improved from last year.
Uh-huh.
We'll see. I mean, I don't think UAB is all that good, and UAB's offense went up and down the field on Georgia Southern's defense. So either UAB is really good offensively, and I just completely undervalued them coming into the season, or Georgia Southern's defense has not improved at all. Remember, they were really bad last year. I'm going to say it's probably the latter. So there's maybe a reason why this number has increased to where it is now. To was it minus 19? Like you said, minus
20,
20.
20. I'm seeing 20 here.
Wow. Okay, so that's even gone up since like in the last several hours.
Yeah.
Um, I think Georgia Southern's offense is really good. So if Georgia Southern's defense, I mean, they gave up a ton of UAB, and that's not a good sign. But I don't think Wisconsin's offense is really clicking to that full degree yet.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess there's some sneaky aspects in this game where it's like Georgia Southern's offense. If Wisconsin's offense is not clicking, can Georgia Southern's offense make this a little interesting?
Yeah.
Maybe for a little while, but Wisconsin should win this game pretty comfortably. And if Wisconsin's offense makes improvements and Georgia Southern's defense is as bad as what it was last year or close to as bad, and the Georgia Southern offense is not having sustained long drives, okay, then things can get troublesome for Georgia Southern in this game. So yeah, I would think Wisconsin wins this game by at least 17. Like I could see a final score of like 38-21,
Okay.
maybe 42-21, and they cover or something like that. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, Vegas is right around that.
Yeah, 20 points. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see it, the spread being right around that.
What about here's another one. What about Iowa State at Ohio? Iowa State favored by 3 on the road against the Bobcats.
No play on this game. No play on this game, but I would watch out for the upset here. I mean, obviously, Iowa State's only a 3-point favorite, so it's
Mm-hmm.
not like it's going to be a huge upset.
Yeah.
But this is one that I looked at the preseason, and I thought Ohio had a really good chance to win. So, again, no play on this game, but I would certainly watch out for the upset here. I would expect this game, as almost all Iowa State games are, will come down to the fourth quarter and be decided by one possession. And if it's the Iowa State that we've seen these last few years, Iowa State might come up on the short end of a close game here. So, I would watch out for the Ohio Bobcats in this game. I think Ohio's defense is better than I thought it was going to be. I'm not sure how healthy the starting quarterback is for Ohio, but if he's playing in this game, yeah,
He
I could
looked
see the
healthy
Bobcats.
last week, so I think that he should be pretty close to full health if he isn't already. Because I know he did play last week.
Yeah, so I could see I could see an upset here.
Okay, yeah.
By the
Uh,
way, Iowa State, so they beat I forgot who it was in the first week of the season. I just looked a couple hours ago.
yeah, I think it was like South Dakota or something like that.
Well,
No,
it wasn't South Dakota. Maybe it was it was an FCS team. Um
I can't
they
remember.
won like I think it was like 30-9
Yeah, I can't
Iowa
remember who
State
they
did.
played in the first week of the season. I know they came back. They came back against Iowa, still lost the game. They played Northern Iowa. They beat them 30-9.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, they beat them by 3 touchdowns, right?
Yeah,
But Northern Iowa actually outgained Iowa State in that game by 30
really.
yards. Yeah, it was the turnover differential. 2 turnovers for Northern Iowa and none for Iowa State. Typically, Iowa State games are the exact opposite. Iowa State normally has the turnovers themselves, and they're not the ones usually forcing the issue. They
Uh
usually
huh.
just play in the game and they keep it close. So yeah, I mean, Iowa State's touchdowns in the first quarter, they went up 14-0, and then after that, it was kind of a slow paced game. There was a 60-yard interception return for a touchdown in the first few minutes. And then there was a like a 7 play, 20-yard drive later in the first quarter. So maybe that was off either special teams miscues or another turnover. I'm going to say probably special teams miscues because Iowa State had a touchdown right before half with 48 seconds to
Uh
go,
huh.
and then Iowa State gets a field goal less than a minute later, like 40 seconds later.
Wow.
It was 1 play, 56-yard field goal.
That's all
So
they
maybe there
needed.
was a turnover there. So yeah,
Probably.
it was 23-0 at half, and I bet Iowa State has maybe 120, 30 yards on offense here. So Iowa State, I don't think they're all that great of a team,
Yeah.
and I think Ohio is legit. I don't think they're great. I think they are legit though. Yeah, I could see an upset here.
And there's another good game. Well, maybe a good game. Power Five schools. Uh, Louisville favored by 10 on the road against Indiana. Indiana hasn't showed a lick of offense, but they've showed a pretty stout defense. So, any info on this game? What do you think?
Well, I might have missed on Indiana in the preseason because if you read the preview, I kind of thought it was going to be the exact opposite for Indiana. I thought their defense was going to be bad, and I thought their offense had a chance to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently, I did not have a good feel for Indiana, although their record still might be what I thought it was going to be, which is around 3-ish wins.
Yeah.
Um, I would think Louisville wins this game. But this is kind of good. You know what? This is going to be a good test for those of us who like to kind of scrutinize these non-conference games and decide, kind of get that idea of what conference is better than the other based
Mm-hmm.
in respect to like the tiers of conference. Like, is the middle tier of the ACC better than the bottom tier of the Big Ten East Division? Kind of, things like that.
Yeah.
That way, when bowl season comes around, you're like, well, this team didn't do that good in the non-conference, so they may not be as good as what their record says, or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would think Louisville wins this game decisively, but yeah, I don't really have a feel for Indiana apparently this
Yeah.
year, so I don't really have a play for this at all.
Yeah, me either. It's kind of tricky because Louisville's got the offense, don't have much of a defense, but Indiana doesn't have an offense and they have defense. So we'll see what happens. But that seems to be the trend so far for Indiana is just go all out on defense. But I mean, they played Ohio State tough for the whole game, but I mean, they still lost 30-3. But the defense played tough, the whole game. So We'll see what happens with Iowa, but yeah, I don't think I would. That's not one that I would look to bet on, especially um, Indiana doesn't have an offense, so I wouldn't take the points. And that's and in Louisville, it's a lot of points on the road. It's just not a game I really care about. Um, let's see here. Here's an interesting game. Maybe you might have a little info for us. What about Liberty going against Buffalo? Liberty favored by 3.5 points on the road.
Buffalo has looked bad so far this season. This is another great game to see what conference is better, the MAC or Conference USA.
Uh huh.
Um, I think the MAC is better this year, but I also think Liberty is better than Buffalo. John, who do you think's winning this game? I don't know.
I would think Liberty. I don't know too much about Buffalo, but it looks like Liberty's gotten off to a pretty nice start to the season, though.
Yeah, I'll. You know what? I'll go with. I think Jamie Chadwell is a coach for Liberty now, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I'll go with Chadwell in this matchup.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's a little scary number just because don't really know how either team will do. But I mean, Liberty's look pretty good though. It's just like a Conference USA school going on the road against a MAC school. MAC school usually they'll play pretty tough at home, so we'll see how it goes. I probably won't bet on it because I don't really feel like laying like 3.5 on the road. But we'll see how the line shakes out. And look into it a little closer the next 2 days. All right, let's get into a couple of other bigger schools, Power Five, and let's go back to the SEC where we have South Carolina going on the road to face Georgia. Georgia's favored by 27.5 points. I
So I
think we
would
have
not
an
let
idea, but let's hear it.
let me mull this over. Let me think who's going to win this game. Georgia. The question is, do they cover or not? If you were going, if you were going to bet on the spread in this game, whether plus 27 and a half or whatever it is for South Carolina or minus 27 or minus 27 and a half for Georgia, I would actually bet on the minus 27 for Georgia. But obviously, I'm not going to lay the points there. This is not going to be a play. But Georgia's kind of run South Carolina out of the stadium the last couple of seasons, so
Yep.
maybe there's something going on with Kirby Smart against Shane Beamer there. But yeah, Georgia's winning this game. South Carolina, I talked about this in the preview magazine, and no one else was talking about it. I don't know why. The South Carolina line of scrimmage is not good. It's not good at all. It's not at the level it should be for an SEC. It's not the level it should be for a Power Five team. They're going to get run over in this game. I guess the biggest question, if you're betting minus 27 and a half for Georgia, is does Georgia get off to a good start? Because we have not seen Georgia get off to a good start yet this season. The running explosiveness has not been there like it has been the last couple of years either. So I do think Georgia is going to be able to run the football on South Carolina, and I do not think South Carolina is going to be able to block Georgia's defense. But then again,
Yeah.
Georgia's pass rush last year and this season has not really been special like it was in 2021. But I'm not obviously going to make a play on this game, but Georgia should win this game by a good amount.
Yeah, I mean they've beaten them by they've covered 28 points the past 3 seasons. And you could say this is probably the worst Georgia team out of those, 3 years. But yeah, I could only look to lay in the points with Georgia here. Like you said, the South Carolina weaknesses are what Georgia will enjoy exploiting, and that would be just terrorizing Spencer Rattler. So yeah, I mean, even South Carolina at home last year, they still got beat by 30 plus points by Georgia. So yeah, I think the line's a little short here. Even though it is 27.5 points, I still think the line's a little short here. And without South Carolina having a competent offense, just think about it. Like North Carolina's defensive line destroyed South Carolina's offensive line. Just imagine what Georgia's going to do to them at home, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Everyone's talking like after that North Carolina South Carolina game, they were talking about how man, North Carolina's defense can be special this year. I'm like, well, it might be improved. It might be. I
Yeah.
mean, they've had talent there. They've underperformed, so it might be okay or better this year. It's not going to be that great. That's just how. That's the situation of South Carolina's offensive line right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that's really about. So yeah, everyone talked about when they talked about South Carolina, they talked about Spencer Rattler is back. The way last year ended, they've got Antoine Juice Wells back. They got a couple of other receivers that should step up. And albeit the passing game for South Carolina has been good,
Yeah.
both from an eye test perspective and a numbers perspective. And I thought from the numbers side of things it would be just because by volume it would have to be because they're not going to be able to run the football. Um, the question is in this game for South Carolina, not so much when you go on the road and challenge Georgia. It's can you escape this game without Spencer Rattler having significant injury?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the question.
Yeah, and that'll be that would be considered a win for South Carolina if they can get out of there alive, health wise, especially with Spencer Rattler. But yeah, regarding the spread, I could only lay the points with Georgia. I think that they'll dominate them because of that offensive line for South Carolina is just not gonna be able to hold.
No, and this is going to be an issue this whole entire season for South Carolina. There's no, at least for this fall, there's no light at the end of the tunnel that's like, oh, we're going to get a couple of our better offensive linemen back in week 4, week 5.
Mm-hmm.
There's none of that. This is what they are for this whole entire season.
Yep.
So,
All right, here's an interesting game. Minnesota playing North Carolina. North Carolina laying 7.5 points at home after they were in a shootout against Appalachian State, a team where not many people were high on. I wasn't high
yeah.
on App State coming into the year, but they for the second year in a row they went toe to toe with North Carolina, a team that should be head over heels better than App State. What do you think
I see
about
what you
what
did
what,
there.
what do you think about this?
Was that on purpose?
No, that actually wasn't.
Nice job. Um, so I would think on paper, North Carolina wins this game by about 10 to 14 points.
Hmm.
But knowing how Mac Brown teams are going to play, they're probably going to find a way to keep it closer than what it should be, just like we saw last week with Appalachian State. So, North Carolina, I would take to win this game. So, money line, but there's no play on this game. I mean, it's what, 7.5?
7.5, yeah.
Yeah, no play on this game for me, because again, North Carolina loves to keep games close against teams that they shouldn't be playing as close with North Carolina. So yeah, North Carolina should win this game. Look, Minnesota, I don't think they're that special this year. I think this actually might be like the worst Minnesota team since 2017, 18, in one of the first years under PJ Fleck.
Hmm.
So like I think Ethan Kaliak Manis has a pretty high ceiling. I just haven't seen that out of him yet. I do think Minnesota's receiving core is pretty good.
The Minnesota
Again,
receivers they're pretty good.
yeah, I just haven't seen it from Ethan Kaliak Manis yet.
No, he might be
The
the one
offensive
holding them
line,
back
yeah,
because the receivers
and
look good, and they showed that off in that Nebraska game. They were wide open on almost every play. It was just whether or not they'd get the ball to them.
yeah, and um, and the offensive line for Minnesota is usually really good. I don't think it's really good this year, but I think it's still fine. Defensively,
Yeah.
Minnesota on paper, it never looks like they're going to be all that great, but they end up turning out a really good defense, and it's probably going to be a really good defense again, at least statistically.
Hmm.
They do a perfect job of doing their job and not messing up. They don't really have too many dudes out there, but they all play their area. They play well as a team. I think their defensive coordinator's name is Joe Rossi, I want to say, from Minnesota. He is doing a fantastic job in Minneapolis right now. Um, but give me North Carolina here. Give me Drake May. Drake May over Ethan, definitely.
Okay. Let's see here. Here's another one that is it's a little interesting after I mean Northwestern destroyed UTEP this weekend, which the spread was basically a pick 'em 1 point almost all week, and then they just housed UTEP. Now they go on the road and play Duke, and Duke's favored by 18 and a half points. What do you think about this game?
So I probably should have not underestimated Duke to the degree that I did coming into the season. I thought they were going to be fighting for a bowl game because of the difficulty of their schedule.
Mm-hmm.
But what I probably also should have taken note of is okay, well, we know what Duke's schedule's like, but what is Duke? Like, what are they as a team? Maybe I undervalued them. Maybe I underestimated them. I still don't think Duke's going to have some special breakthrough season because of their schedule,
Mm-hmm.
but I think Duke's a good team. I do. I really do. And I do not think Northwestern is a good team. But I'm going to stay away from making a play on this game because Duke, for all I know, maybe they're still not all that special. And maybe it was really just Clemson making a bunch of mistakes and Clemson maybe being overrated. Maybe that's what it
Yeah,
was about. And
a
maybe
lot of
Duke's a
it.
quality. Maybe Duke's a quality 8-4-ish team, but nothing special. And maybe Clemson is a quality 8-4-ish team, but nothing special. Um, so I don't. I'm not going to overreact. From that week one game is where I'm
Yeah,
going with it, where it's like, oh my gosh, Clemson's going to go 7-5 and Duke's going to go 10-2. No, I'm not going to overreact like that. It's not what's. I mean, it's probably not going to happen. Um, but Duke is definitely a better team than Northwestern. I do not know what happened in that Northwestern and UTEP game. I don't,
yeah. I didn't
quite
watch it.
frankly.
I'm not too sure. I didn't see any of it. Not
I'm
yet,
pretty
anyway.
sure I'm pretty sure UTEP was up 7-0 in the first quarter.
Oh, really? And
Yeah,
they
I'm
never
pretty
scored
sure.
again.
Yeah, let me see. I mean, do I have
Because I think it was like 38-7, something like that.
Oh, yeah,
That was the
it might
final.
even been worse than that. Yeah, let me pull up Northwestern. I think they beat them. Okay, yeah, 38-7. And did UTEP score? They did. UTEP scored first. I think it was their opening drive. Yeah, it was their opening drive. 8 plays, 70 yards, about 4 minutes, 4-yard pass from Hardison. So UTEP led 7-0 at Northwestern 4 minutes into the game, and Northwestern responded with a touchdown, and then it was tied 7-7 at halftime, and then the third quarter, and well, the whole second half was just terrible for UTEP. Total yards
Not
was
surprising.
not as bad as what the score would lead you to believe. Northwestern only outgained UTEP by 70 yards. I mean, yes, they outgained them significantly, but I mean, looking at that score, you would think Northwestern outgained them by 150 yards or so. So, not more. So, yeah, again, I don't know what happened to UTEP in that game because I don't think Northwestern is still all that good of a team. I would take Duke in this game, obviously for sure, straight up. But ATS, with Duke this year, ATS, I'm gonna stay away from.
Yeah. Yeah, we still don't know too much about either of these teams because both of them had weird, well, not weird, but um, yeah, I would say kind of weird starts to the season. Duke didn't look that
Yeah,
hot against Clemson. Their defense looked, decent. They looked pretty solid, but Clemson still went all over, ran the ball all over them.
yeah,
And Northwestern got killed by Rutgers, but then kills UTEP. But Rutgers is better than UTEP. So we'll see how they do against like a real team. And Duke, it seems like a lot of points. I mean, 18 and a half, that's a lot.
yeah. It's a lot, but I honestly still would not be surprised if Duke ended up covering the spread. But I also would not be surprised if Northwestern had a backdoor cover and
Yeah, that's
final score was
always a
yeah
possibility with, a number at 18 and a half. That's, yeah, for sure.
34-17 final score and Northwestern gets the cover.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that.
And what about, let's see here. We have an interesting game here. San Diego State against Oregon State. Oregon State favored by 24 and a half points. What do you got for us with your Oregon State Beavers?
So I don't know if Oregon State will cover this. They might. I don't know if they will. I mean, there's potential look ahead spot to Washington State next week for Oregon State. And San Diego State, they're not a good team. But what they do every year, it doesn't change, is they play so well in a phone booth.
Mm-hmm.
They do it better than almost any team in the country, really. That you know what you're going to get with them. Of course, this year it's like lower level quality, but they still do what they do. Um, so San Diego State might get a cover here because of a potential again look ahead spot for Oregon State. But
Uh-huh.
Oregon State's going to win this game by at least 2 touchdowns. I could see a final score of like 34-13, or maybe even lower for San Diego State, and both maybe 34-10.
34 to
I,
10.
yeah, I mean, I think that number is right about. I think it's right. I think they got it right on the nose there. Um, or it's spot on
Mm-hmm.
that number. I would not bet it either way. Yeah, that's a tough call with ATS there. So I'd stay away from that. But Oregon State is for sure winning this football game. And this was a matchup in the preseason that I thought would not be close, and I'm going to stand by that. You had a lot of people, Mountain West people, are like, "Man, can San Diego State go into Oregon State and give them some trouble?"
It's
No, they won't.
doubtful.
No, they won't.
It's
Yeah, they're not
extremely
going to give any
doubtful.
trouble. Yeah,
Yeah,
San
I
Diego State's
mean,
not a good team. San Diego State is the team. Well, they are one of the teams to kind of fade this year. Of course, then again, it's the Mountain West, and so you kind of want to fade every Mountain West team.
mm-hmm.
And so some there's going to be teams in the Mountain West that have to cover, so you can't fade every team there. And then Oregon State is a team that I think Vegas was undervaluing this year, and it showed. They are 2-0, I believe. Yeah, they're 2-0 ATS.
Yeah.
I mean, at least I believe they covered last week. I don't remember what that spread was, but I mean,
Against
unless they
who? The UCLA game?
UC Davis, UC Davis
Oh
for
yeah, I have
Oregon
no
State,
idea. Yeah, I have no idea.
but yeah, Oregon State's going to win this game by at least 2 touchdowns, and maybe they do. Maybe Oregon State does get the cover, but like I mentioned, there is a potential look ahead spot here for Oregon State. And the way they play, both teams, they like to run down the clock, long
Mm-hmm.
extended drives. Now, San Diego State's not going to get a lot, but they're going to attempt. And at the very least, they're probably going to run down some clock. I can promise you this: Oregon State is definitely going to run down clock with the way that they play. So if you're going to bet anything here, and I'm not going to make this a play, but if you were going to make any play on this game, I would take the under on the point total is what I would do.
Under. Yeah, I mean,
Those
because that
those point
UCLA
total,
game, I think the final was 30-7. So I mean, maybe. Unless
w-
Oregon State decides to run up the score,
and I
throwing
doubt
the
they do
ball.
that with the way they play. I really doubt it. I mean, I'm gonna pull up the point total. So it's 48. Yeah, if you're gonna bet on anything, I
48.
would
Yeah.
take the under on the point total because I don't think San Diego State is going to score much here, and I think Oregon State's defense is really good. San Diego State's offense is not that good. I did not know this. San Diego State is averaging giving up 430 yards a game. So I thought
How
San Diego
many?
State's
How many yards?
430. I know it's through
Oh
only
wow,
3 games, but yeah,
that's
they're
crazy.
not a good team. Not that good of a team. I mean, I figured San Diego State's defense wouldn't be quite as good this year, but I didn't think the number would be that bad. Um, so yeah, again, if you're going to do anything, I would take the under on this game because even if Oregon State has a scoring fest and they score, say, 42, 45 points, will San Diego State get a touchdown or will they get more than a field goal? I don't know if they will.
Yeah,
So, but I would stay away from any plays in this game because, again, because of the spot here of the game.
yeah. All right. Here's another one. I was trying to skip. Okay, here's one that I'm kind of curious about. A rivalry game. Pittsburgh at West Virginia. West Virginia favored by 3 points at home.
Wait, what did you say the spread was?
West Virginia favored by 3 points at home against Pittsburgh.
wow, I don't remember what the line opened up as, but I can promise you it was not West Virginia -3. Um,
I'm not
it might
sure.
have been closer to a pick 'em spread to begin with. If not, maybe Pittsburgh as a 1 point favorite or West Virginia as a 1 point favorite. So the line has obviously moved there in West Virginia's favor. I don't know who's winning this game. To me, these are two teams that I mean, interestingly enough, people were taking betting on the West Virginia under in the preseason and betting on the Pittsburgh over.
Yeah.
And now you have a lot of those same people that were making those same bets now taking West Virginia to win this game outright because of both teams' performances to start this season thus far. If you're asking me straight up, I would say home team in this scenario with the rivalry here. So I would go with the Mountaineers.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, maybe Pittsburgh bounces back. Maybe Pittsburgh was looking ahead of this game and they weren't really focusing on last week against Cincinnati. And maybe West Virginia's performance against Penn State, because they looked okay, is just simply because of how they matched up. Kind of like what I was talking about when I took the under on that game. I
Mm-hmm.
kind of like matched up, but it really didn't have to do with what West Virginia um, had in terms of their individual playmakers, just more so how they matched up as a team. So I don't have a play on this game at all. I don't know what to expect in this game. Do you?
No, not really, because I didn't watch the West Virginia Penn State game, and then I mean Pittsburgh got absolutely crushed by Cincinnati. Um,
Yeah, Pittsburgh kind of made a late
did they make
comeback.
a comeback? Because last I saw, Cincinnati was winning pretty easily. I guess the
The,
last time I saw a score.
yeah, I mean you're right. I think Cincinnati was up 21-0. I'm pulling up Pittsburgh right now.
Yeah, let's
I think
see
they lost in a
here.
one-score game. Yeah,
Oh
Pittsburgh
yeah,
lost
they
to
came back.
Cincinnati
Yeah.
27-21.
So at
Okay,
halftime
yeah, the
they were
score
up
was
20 to they Cincinnati was up at half 20-7.
yeah, and they were up going into the fourth quarter 27-7. Let me see what the total yardage was. Yeah, so Cincinnati actually outgained Pittsburgh by 100 yards. So what I will say is that Pittsburgh's offensive line was not good at all in this game. Now, Cincinnati's defensive line, that's like the one strength in their team. They can rush the passer pretty well. Um, but it is a little alarming for Pittsburgh because their offensive line, not that it was supposed to be great or anything, but it certainly was supposed to be better than what they showcased against Cincinnati at home,
Yeah.
no less. So I would lean West Virginia, but I mean this is not a game where I'm like, oh, I'm telling you this is the team that's going to win this
Yeah.
game because of this reason. I don't have any kind of special play like that for this game. That's for sure.
Yeah, because I mean, yeah, I wouldn't be able to trust West Virginia, and then after what happened last week, Pittsburgh, even though they're getting 3 points, like I need to see a little bit more from both of these schools before I could bet something like that. Like even though it's a rivalry, I'm just gonna take a step back because it's not. I need to learn more about them. Really, I don't see
And
myself betting that game. More than
when we
likely, I
were
probably
talking
won't.
when we were talking preseason win totals and we were talking about West Virginia, this is the exact reason why I did not bet on the under for West Virginia, because they played a lot of teams that I didn't really know what to expect from. I mean, you would think West Virginia is not going to be that good of a team. Roster doesn't look that great. Skill position looks extremely questionable. But then again, who are they playing? Like, I didn't really know truthfully what to expect from Pittsburgh. I didn't know. I don't still don't know what to expect from Cincinnati, Oklahoma State. So that's kind of why I stayed away from West Virginia from playing the under on them, because I don't think they're that good of a team. But they just had a ton. They had a ton of teams on their schedule that had a lot of unknowns.
Yeah. Let's jump because I'm skipping some, but let's jump into the plays that you have, and let's go back and start with the Kansas State Missouri game. Like let's jump into that one. Your play at
So
least.
when I made the play with you, I'm pulling up the number here. I believe I said Missouri was at plus 5.5 when I took it.
I'm not too. I don't remember exactly that opener what it was.
I'm gonna go back to, let's see. Okay, no, I said plus 5. That's when I saw it.
Oh, plus 5. Yeah. Yeah, because now it's at 4.
It went down to -3.5 briefly, and then
Oh,
it went
really?
back up to -4 for K State. So yeah, it went down for Missouri. I guess look on the Missouri side here, went down to +3.5, but now it's back
Yeah, I
up to
see a couple
+5.
3.5s and majority of 4s, I would say.
So yeah, for those of you who saw us on the show last week, I talked about how my the play that I was going to be looking at from the get go was the Missouri and Kansas State line, and so yeah, here we go. Missouri +5 at home against the defending Big 12 champion.
And would you take it at plus 4?
I would be more inclined to take it at plus. Well, sure, let's go +4.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
But I'm more confident in +5 because I think there is a possibility Kansas State scores a touchdown late in the game. Because Missouri is much worse in one score games than Kansas State is. So there's could be a scenario late in the game where let's say Missouri's up 17-14, and then Kansas State scores a late touchdown and they win 21-17. There's a push
Mhm.
there. But if you get it at +5, then I feel much more confident in that spread than at +4. But I still feel like Missouri might win this game outright, so I'll go Missouri +4 as well.
Okay.
Unless we can do +5, I'd prefer that.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, I know you took that on the opener. I was just bringing that up because just that's what the spread is now. Just whether or not you would take it for whoever listens in. Let's
Yeah,
see here.
yeah. I guess I'd still be inclined to. Obviously, my play is going to be +5, but
Yeah.
if they want to make that play, yeah. I mean, I think there's some value to that.
All right. Let's see. And then the other one, Washington against Michigan State. Let's hear about that.
So when I took it, the number was at Washington -14.5. I think that line's now at -16.5
Yeah,
for Michigan
I'm seeing
or for
16 and a
Washington.
half. Yeah.
I would take that as well. I think Washington's going to beat Michigan State by at least 3 scores. So I would think that they can. There's Michigan State. I will say this. What now? Of course, they don't have. There's that weird coaching situation right now, obviously with Michigan State. So that's something to
Yeah.
keep in mind. But what I
Mark
will say,
D'Antonio is the coach, right?
well, he's going to be helping out.
Oh, okay. I thought they tagged him as an interim or whatever. Okay, so he's just helping.
Yeah, he's just helping. But even if he was the head coach at this point or the interim coach,
Hmm.
there's not a whole lot he can do with this roster with where it is right now. Um, there is a potential for garbage time points here, so I am concerned about that. But I really feel like Washington has been undervalued coming into the season from the get go. As you know, I took them minus what was it, 14.5 against Boise when everybody else was doing the opposite. They were taking Boise plus 14.5. And I thought Boise wasn't as good as people made him out to be. And I thought Washington was better than people made him out to
Uh
be.
huh.
And they covered big time. I don't know if they'll cover to that degree in this game. They could actually, though. I don't think Michigan State's good. I think they've played two nobodies so far, and they haven't looked good offensively. And Washington's defense is going to be the best defense they faced thus far. Not that they're great, but they are certainly the best they've faced thus far. And this Washington offense, this Michigan State defense does not match up well at all against this Washington Husky offense. And obviously, there's again the off the field situation with Michigan State. So let's go. I took it at -14.5. So I guess that'll be the play
Hmm.
for those of you who are interested in still potentially betting Washington -16.5. Again, there is a potential for garbage time points for Michigan State because they have been good at that over the years. They're really good in garbage time. Um, but remember Washington last year? They only beat Michigan State by like 11, but they should have beat them by like 30, honestly.
Yeah.
Um, I think there's not that there's going to be revenge on Washington's mind, but I think they're going to have that mindset. Let's put this game away. Let's not let them hang around, kind of thing. So yeah, I would be inclined to take Washington minus 16 and a half because, like I said, I think they can win by at least 3 scores, so by at least 17.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we'll see how that line moves throughout the weekend, or the rest of the week leading up into Saturday at kickoff. That'd be interesting to see how the line moves. Was
Yeah,
another one? Did you have a play on the North Texas Louisiana Tech game? Was that
yeah.
another
So
one?
I
Okay,
I
go
I
ahead.
I made this play at minus 2.5 for La Tech. Um, the line is now minus 4.5
Yeah.
for La Tech. I would stay away from the 4.5 because I don't think Louisiana Tech's defense is all that good. And UNT, so the coaching staff or the head coach announced that North Texas is going to be starting Stone Earl. At least he was listed, Stone Earl was, as the starting quarterback on the depth chart for this game. It's not a good sign for UNT. Nothing against Stone Earl, but Chandler Rogers is the best quarterback right now on UNT's roster, and that's the guy who they should be playing at quarterback, not Stone Earl. So if they go into the game, let's say after a drive or two, and then Chandler Rogers gets in for North Texas, okay, then that's okay for UNT. But if they're playing Stone Earl throughout the first half, then La Tech's going to get this cover here because, like I said, the UNT defense, it might be the worst in the country right now. Certainly one of the 5 worst in the country right now. And La Tech's offense is really good. Well, I say it's really good. It's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And they're at La Tech. So if you this line opened up, by the way, at like La Tech -1 or -1.5. So if you saw that this past Sunday, you were probably quick to jump on that after seeing UNT's performance to start the season against Cal and FIU. But remember, John, last week I'm kind of in a fade UNT position right now.
Yeah.
Uh, so would I take La Tech at -4.5? I would not, just because I don't think La Tech's defense is very good at all. Um, but at -2.5, I definitely would.
Okay. Did you have another play or was that it? I don't know if I skipped one or not.
I've got one other play.
Okay, go ahead. I must have missed it then.
So now, so when I took this, this was, I think, my favorite play, or at least one of my 2 favorite
Uh
plays.
huh.
Um, South Alabama plus 9.5 in Stillwater against Oklahoma State.
Oh, that
Now,
was
this
right.
line
Sorry.
has since gone down to now South Alabama +7. So for those of you listening on this episode, I would not take it at +7. But at plus it was at +9 for a while. It didn't say at +9.5, or it quickly went down to 9. I would have taken it at +9 as well. So if you can find maybe any +8s or 7.5s out there, I would take that, but not 7. The reason why I say that is because Mike Gundy is like one of the kings in college football at winning one-score games. Like, Oklahoma State is really good in one-score games. So Oklahoma State might win this game 24-17 and get a push here. But if you got this line at like 9.5 or 9 or 8.5 or 8, or even at 7.5, I think it'd be a pretty good play. Because I'll tell you this right now, I think South Alabama is good enough to win this game outright. At the very least, I do not expect them to be. I do not expect South Alabama to lose this game by more than a touchdown. There was only one scenario where Oklahoma State, I think, gets the cover here, and it's what happened in the Texas Tech Oregon game. It would be the biggest bad beat of the weekend. It would have to be Oklahoma State gets a late score to go up by a possession. South Alabama's offense gets the ball and they're trying to go score at the end of the game, and then there's a late turnover and Oklahoma State scores off of it. That would be the only scenario that I see Oklahoma State covering this spread. But there could be a push at, again, at +7 for South Alabama here, but I took it at +9.5, and I would not be willing to take it at +7.
Okay. Yeah. No, that should be a good game. I think, especially with it being in Stillwater. I think it'll be a good game. I didn't have, of course, my plays come out Saturday, usually Saturday morning. But one that I will have, or that I put in today, and I put this out on Twitter, Colorado laying 23 points against Colorado State at home. I don't really have a lot of faith in Colorado State. They got destroyed at home against Washington State, and Colorado will be bringing in a similar type of offense, probably a better quarterback, and some pretty strong weapons. And I think that they'll be able to win and run up the score. And the trash talk that Norvell kind of threw in there, I think that was yesterday. I don't think it did him any favors, so I put that one in today. But that was the only one that I have right now, besides the Memphis game tonight.
Yeah, yeah, I could see that. But John, I've been wrong about Colorado. I know a lot of people have. You have not, but there have been a lot of people, including myself, that have been wrong about Colorado, and I've been also wrong about Colorado State. So I have not gotten the state of Colorado
Yeah,
correct this year. So
but
I'm going to
but there's
say,
still Colorado State still has conference play.
yeah,
But yeah, like you said earlier, their non-conference against some tough schools. Well, mainly Washington State. Yeah, they weren't ready for that though. They weren't ready. And Washington State, obviously, they're a top 20, 25 team, and we'll see how they do the rest of the season. But yeah, it's been a tough schedule to start the season for Colorado State.
yeah. So I think, like I said, I have been wrong about Colorado, so I don't have. I'm not going to really have any place on Colorado moving forward, unless no, this would be some. At this point in the season, I'm not sure what the line would be, but if Colorado is a short underdog against Oregon State at home, so like let's say Oregon State is a 4.5, 5 point favorite in that game at Colorado, I would actually take Oregon State minus the points because I think the way Oregon State matches up against Colorado heavily favors Oregon State.
Yeah,
Um, so that would be an individual matchup. Any team in conference play in the Pac-12 that has decent line of scrimmage, I would take them minus the points against Colorado right now, considering how much the market has changed for Colorado. But looking back at it, I don't think TCU or Nebraska, or maybe not even Colorado State, are going to be that good of teams this year. So Colorado is going to feed on these non-conference teams. The market's going to completely adjust, or they're going to like completely swing their adjustments to Colorado. And Colorado is probably going to be a double-digit underdog, like at Oregon, maybe against USC, maybe like a 9 point underdog to USC at home. But I would take like USC and Oregon minus those points, whatever those spreads are, unless they're like 15, 16, 17 point favorites. But I don't
yeah.
think that's the case for, at least for not for USC at Colorado. I believe USC has to travel to Colorado, correct?
Yes, yeah, that's a road game for USC.
Yeah. Now Oregon might be a 15, 16 point favorite at home against Colorado, but yeah, I would take those opponents, especially when those weeks um, come up here in the next couple of weeks. I would take Colorado. Oh, I'm sorry. I would take um, USC and Oregon minus the points whenever they face Colorado because I don't think Colorado is still all that great of a team that I undervalue it. That I undervalue them absolutely,
Hmm.
but um, the line of scrimmage is exactly what I thought it was going to be for Colorado. It's still not that good. But I guess the ceiling for Colorado is higher than I thought it was going to be. The floor, though, is still what I thought it was going to be. The ceiling, though, is probably 6 or 7 wins that I would say because the schedule is still pretty difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting, but they got off to a hot start, but definitely a lot of season left to play. And I mean, they played one of the worst Big 12 schools, one of the worst Big 10 schools. So, it's still pretty early. At least in my opinion, TCU will be at the bottom of the Big 12 and Nebraska will probably be at the bottom of the Big 10. But I mean, they were 21 point dogs coming into the season. and then obviously a short favorite for whatever reason against Nebraska. But there's just a lot of season left to play with Colorado, and the Pac-12 looks to be pretty stacked this season. So we'll see how it goes. But so far, so good for the Buffaloes.
Yeah, and they've definitely surprised me. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Um, so real quick, John, just want to make sure that we
Yeah.
get the proper numbers here. What are the numbers that you have here for my plays?
You said plus 5 with Missouri, right?
Correct.
And then minus 3.5 with Louisiana Tech.
I got it minus 2.5.
2.5. Okay, because I don't have my phone. I don't have the messages up in front of me from when you sent me the other day. So you could probably go ahead and tell me that way I have them.
So I have Missouri +5 against Kansas State.
Okay,
I have La Tech minus 2.5 against North Texas. I have Washington minus
that's the
14
other
and a
one.
half against
Uh huh.
Michigan State, and then South Alabama plus 9.5 in Stillwater against Oklahoma State.
Okay.
Um, and then those numbers now, South Alabama is now a +7 against Oklahoma
Uh
State.
huh.
La Tech is now minus 4.5. Missouri, I believe, is +4, maybe +3.5 in some areas.
Uh huh.
And then Washington is minus 16, minus 16.5 in some other places. Um, would I be inclined to take any of those spreads? I would be inclined to take Washington minus 16.5. I would be inclined to take Missouri +4, maybe even +3.5.
Uh huh.
I would stay away from La Tech at 4.5. I think. I think. Um, I would certainly stay away from South Alabama at +7. But at the numbers that I got them, I'm feeling very comfortable.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's good. And just to build off of that, what we're gonna plan on doing is, because normally Connor does play openers and attacks them pretty quick when they come out early Sunday afternoon, or I think they come out like at 2 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock Central Time. I think it's 2 o'clock Central Time, and so he's gonna make some videos and get some content out there for the openers. That way, y'all are able to jump on them pretty early, like he does, and that should help out. Because as you can see, they move at least these have moved at least 2 points. So each of them have moved 2 points, if not more. So that's what we're gonna plan on doing for next week. That way, y'all get a little bit of info on some opening lines. And like I said, next weekend's schedule's pretty stacked. A lot of great games. This week, not so many great games, because last week we had a ton of good games. This week's a little slow, and then next week is pretty stacked. Some conference games, some non-conference, but a lot of good games though.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this week. But yeah, next week, that's going to be a fantastic week. Week 4 for college football. I
Yep,
cannot wait until next Saturday. But I'm a college football enthusiast, so I look forward to every
every
single
week,
Saturday,
right?
every single
Yeah,
week.
no,
Yeah, week in,
I'm
week
with
in.
you for sure. But yeah, I mean that was everything that we had. You have anything else, Connor? You want to add anything?
Um, I mentioned it earlier in the show. I'm not going to make a play on it, but I am very much looking forward to Ohio and Iowa State. Very interesting matchup to me. Let me see what the point total is for that game. I'm going to guess it's probably around 48, Pat.
You said the Iowa State game.
Yeah, Iowa State and Ohio.
42 and a half.
Whoa, it's 42 and a half? Oh
Yeah,
my
it's
gosh.
kind of. I mean, didn't the Iowa State game go over that? So that's pretty. Feels like a low total.
Um, no, I would not take the over on that or the under. I would not. When it comes to Iowa State, I stay away from point totals. I mean, unless there's like
Yeah,
a point total in the 50s, but that's just not going to be the case with Iowa State,
yeah.
at least in most of their games. They lost 20-13 against Iowa last week. Iowa State did. So actually, I think the under hit in that game. Um, because I'm pretty sure the over under was like the point total was like 36 and a half or 37 or 37 and a half.
Yeah, I'm not too
But
sure what the Iowa State total. I mean, yeah, I'm not sure what that total was last week.
I'm pretty sure the under hit because I'm pretty confident in that there was not a point total of like lower than 35. So um no, I would not bet on the Iowa State and Ohio game whatsoever, but I am very much interested in watching that game. I expect that game to come down to the very last possession.
Oh, okay. It should be a good game. I mean, Iowa State's trying to get used to their new quarterback, but they did all right against Iowa defense last week. And Ohio, they have an offense. They'll be at home. Now they'll play against a real defense. So we'll see how they do. It was hard to get a good read on them because of the injury to Rourke in the San Diego State game. So we'll definitely know a little bit more about both teams after their game on Saturday.
Yeah, and this schedule for Iowa State's really difficult. So if they lose this game, it would be a bad look because they get Oklahoma State at home next weekend, and I don't think Oklahoma State's great. But listen to the rest: at Oklahoma, TCU, at Cincinnati, at Baylor, Kansas, at BYU, Texas, at Kansas State. So like, it's not like an impossible schedule with like multiple top 10 teams
Uh
like what
huh.
Michigan State is going to be going through for basically the rest of the season, but or like what Florida is going to have to go through. But it's a tricky enough schedule where if I were just to mention the teams that they have to still play without mentioning the locations of these respective games, teams like Ohio and Cincinnati, Baylor, BYU, those are beatable teams for Iowa State.
Mm-hmm.
And all those games are on the road. So it just makes it that much more difficult to accumulate wins. And this was something that I talked about in the preview magazine with some of the unders that I took with like Michigan State and Florida is that they already have difficult games where they're probably not winning anyways and they get those games at home. And those toss-up games are on the road. If you are a team that's kind of fighting for a bowl game that's probably going to be between 5 and 7 wins for a respective season, you want your toss-up games at home, not on the road, because it just makes it that much more difficult again to accumulate those wins when you have your 50-50 games on the road and the games against teams that you're probably not beating anyways and you get them at home. You want those games away from home.
Yeah.
So that's not the kind of schedule that Iowa State has because they play teams like, I mean, there's not a ton of impossible games at home, but it's you wouldn't think as of right now that they're going to beat TCU, but who knows what I guess what TCU is made of. I wouldn't think they're going to beat Texas or Kansas right now, and they get both of those teams at home. So again, it's just a tricky schedule for Iowa State. So if Iowa State does lose to Ohio, it could start piling up. One loss after another kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. So we'll see. Tough game nonetheless, especially against good offense. But that was everything that we had today. We'll shut it down. And like we said, if you have any questions, just hit us up on Twitter. We can go over other games. And we still have a couple days until Saturday, obviously. But yeah, hopefully we could get things going, keep things on the right track.
Oh, one last thing
Yep.
before we
Go
stop
ahead.
this show, before we end our show today. What I just did with Iowa State is what I'm going to do with Florida and Michigan State if they both lose on Saturday because the rest of those two teams' schedules, if you thought Iowa State's schedule is tricky in respect to their roster, then you really need to listen on Michigan State and Florida schedules for the remainder of the season. And if both of those teams don't look that great this Saturday and they both come up on the short end, then I'm going to be inclined to preview the rest of those two teams' schedules for the remainder of this 2023 season because it's not easy for those two teams.
Yeah. Yeah, no, not at all. But all right, we'll close it up there, and if anything else comes up, we'll probably post it to either YouTube or the X, Twitter. So just let us know. But other than that, I think we'll go ahead and shut it down, Connor.
All right. Sounds good.
All right, awesome.